Welcome into our lives.
And welcome to the Expanders Club podcast.
We're so happy to have you.
Join us as we embark on a journey of deep exploration, soul searching, and asking the hard questions.
With the goal of truly understanding the most aligned, empowered, and purposeful versions of ourselves.
We want to live an extraordinary life, and we're willing to dig deep to find out what it takes.
Buckle up. You're about to meet a new version of yourself, an extraordinary one.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Expanders Club podcast. I'm Maddie, and I'm a mindset coach and empowerment coach. I'm focused on helping people uncover their power and create their dream life, helping them on the journey that I'm on. I'm a wellness advocate, a community builder, and a foodie.
My name is Brooke. I have been an entrepreneur in the wellness space for the past 10 years. I have also been blessed with healing from several strange and chronic illnesses, which any of you who have been on that journey know there's a lot to learn along the way. And I am into the woo. I'm into the woo-woo. The spiritual, astrology, Akashic records, psychics, aliens, all the things. You'll get the weird stuff from me. You'll get the dream life from Maddie.
Yeah. I'm a dream. I'm dreaming big, helping people achieve that.
Yeah, and we're having so much fun doing it on this platform and bringing amazing guests and sharing with you our stories and, just exploring all the possibilities, all the beauty, all the mystery of life.
That's exactly right. And yeah, we created the Expanders Club to help inspire people, explore the possibilities. This life has so much to offer, and sometimes seeing others on their paths, different paths, can help inspire us to achieve more, seek outside the norms, and do things without judgment. Try new things without judgment.
Yes. Let's go. I'm inspired. What do we have? What's up this week, Mads?
Okay, this week we have such a fun episode, particularly fun for me because I was speaking to one of my besties, Leesh.
Let me be clear. It's fun as a listener too. I mean, I know Leesh, not well though. And when we kick it off, I was like, should we challenge people to a drinking game every time the girls say legend? You take a shot because it's two Aussies, just the banter and the language. It's a lot of fun. You guys have a really fun dynamic.
Thank you. I think we tried to be quite put together, and Leesh was really putting on her professional girl persona, and then we loosened up and the Aussie chat got real. So we're sitting in our own lounge room, we're having a chat. It was great. And the reason I wanted to bring Leesh on the podcast is because of her own personal experience with a chronic illness, in particular endometriosis, which we dive into. And, Leesh talks about her own personal experience. And whilst this is both educational, she's providing her journey, what she went through. And I hope this can be really inspiring for women who are feeling the same and maybe are looking for support and just don't really know what to do or what to look out for, and maybe haven't even heard of endometriosis before. And this is able to give them an understanding of what they might be experiencing.
I mean, I feel like it's such a thing these days. Most of my friends have dealt with it or have had some form of endometriosis. I just hear it constantly. And I know you guys talk about this in the episode, but the fact that there's not more information, more research, more understanding of what causes it is really scary, considering the numbers and how really negatively it can impact a woman. So it's kind of scary to be in conversation and realize, wow, a lot of women are dealing with this as an issue. And while I know that the conversation is about that, really, Leesh is she just has such a powerful way about her. I loved seeing her in this light and in this conversation because she, from a young age, really advocated for her own health and was really empowered to understand her body and what was going on. And that story is incredible and so inspiring. It's like, first off, it was when she was like 21 or something like that. Like, most of us are not thinking that way at 21, and we aren't raised to think that way of like, hey, I need to figure this out. I know something's wrong. I need to advocate for myself. And a lot of us aren't even doing it now in our 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s. We give so much power to the medical system and to other people to tell us what's going on with our bodies. When you and I talk about this all the time, and we talk about this in the simplest form, from like what you're putting in your body to like understanding how your body works, and if something's out of place, really really digging in to understand what that is. But we have to be the authority on our bodies, our systems, on understanding how we work.
We do, and it's scary. When you have, a bigger issue and you feel that, you don't know what to do. It's scary. Like, all you can do is talk about it, and hopefully other people have experienced it that can help you out and guide you. And Leesh's story is so brave, and hopefully it can be helpful for people. And I mean, I feel like women have all experienced their own version of, in a different way, issues with their cycles, with their reproductive organs, etc. But I don't think it's talked about very much, and I'm glad that we're bringing up this conversation.
Yeah. Have you had any issues?
Yeah, so I actually had an abnormal pap smear 2 years in a row, and my first one was about 3 years ago. And you never think that you're going to get an abnormal pap smear. You just go in for your routine pap smear and you're like, cool, it's all good. And the first year they were like, yeah, this is abnormal, but it's all good. We'll come back and check it next year.
First of all, like, fuck the world that we have to have pap smears also there. That is like the most
barbaric.
It is barbaric. It really is barbaric. I mean, if a man had to do something like that, it would be just completely reinvented by now. Something that uncomfortable and that, it, like, my stomach turns thinking about it.
They're sticking prongs up your vagina, and it goes deep, and then there's just this like clip, and it just and whatever they're getting the cells, they're getting the fluid, they're getting whatever to test. And so that was barbaric. And 2 abnormal pap smears in a row, and they came back and they're like, okay, yeah, we got to look in further. So I had to get a coloscopy, which is where they go up into the cervix with a camera to see what's going on. And they found abnormal cells in my cervix, and this was precancerous cells. And also something we don't speak about is HPV, which human papillomavirus, very common sexually transmitted disease that only women can be tested for, and only we know, and most men can't be tested for it, but most men have it and are passing it on. And it can, I'm not sure if it actually can affect men, but in women it can cause cervical cancer. So I remember when we were all in high school, they came out with a cervical cancer vaccine. And so we got that when we were like, I don't know, 16, 17. And then, but it was a certain amount of strains that it was covered. Whatever strain wasn't covered is the one that I got. It's a few years ago. And so that grew into precancerous cells, and they're like, okay, we have to go in and slice off a bit of your cervix to get rid of the cancerous cells, and then burn it to seal it. And this is kind of what Leesh is speaking about in endo. I mean, her surgery is way worse. This is just another one. But when I really thought about it, I was like, this sounds seriously barbaric. Like, I feel like the procedures that they're using for women's organs are not so far advanced. And this isn't anything against doctors and surgeons. I think it's the greater system of the amount of research and updating systems and how they're treating female reproductive organs?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty deep systemic issue. There's a lot of rabbit holes you could go down on why these issues exist. And we won't fully go there, but
we could go deep.
Bottom line is it's pretty messed up, and women go through, I mean, our systems are so much more nuanced, so much more, we're on a 20 some day cycle. Our hormones are constantly changing. Our systems are changing. We can grow and create fucking life. Like, how insane is that? And when you're doing that, you grow, your body not only grows a baby, but it grows a brand new organ. Like, the placenta is an organ, and then you birth the human out of like a tiny, tiny little space in your body that never released anything that size before. And then you feed it from your body. Like, how? Well, I remember after I had Bowie, it was a really hard time reconciling. Like, I had this weird in my postpartum stage, and maybe this is actually what the postpartum blues are, is like it was really hard to reconcile what I had just gone through and how I felt about every woman, whether they have given birth or not. But the fact that we have the ability to do this is like, holy fuck, are we even human? We are superhero. We have superpowers. Like, we are incredible. And then you reconcile that with a lot of the things that happen in our day to day. And we live in America, so we have it pretty good. But still, like, a lot of the ways women are treated, or I'd get on conversations. I was like fundraising and having business calls pretty quickly after I had the baby, and I'd get on business calls where these men were like rude or just like didn't have the time for me, or were like, and I'd be like, I wanted to be like, I just fucking grew and birthed a kid. Like, what have you done? And it's this real mind fuck of like, wait a minute, we are literally, our bodies can do things that men could never dream of. This is not a male woman thing, but it's just like, it was this weird thing of like, we are not even human. We are superheroes. And yet that is not, when we walk around out in life, that is not how society is structured.
And it's not until people go through this that they actually understand. Like, I was having this conversation with my friends the other night, this couple who are pregnant, and they've been reading all the books, watching all the things, like learning all about how the changes in the female body. And the husband, the partner, he's like, I can't believe how incredible you are. Your women are amazing. What your bodies can do is actually blowing my mind. Like, he's like, I feel useless in comparison. And this is not to put down men in any way. It is just that maybe once people actually see it and can appreciate the female bodies and what they go through.
Yes. Dennis and I joke, and I definitely throw it in his face, like, as a joke, but we're like, in the creation, every time we talk about our kid, every night Bowie goes to bed, we're like, isn't she amazing? She's so amazing. She's so perfect, as parents do. And I'm just like, you realize you had very little to do with this. Like, your part in this was like, a few seconds. And then I did everything else. And like, in a joking way, but like, that literally is the fact. Like,
facts.
Yeah. Not that my husband lasts a few seconds, guys. I'm just saying, like, the actual transaction of like what needed to happen to create a baby was like.
Tell us more.
Well, we were in Costa Rica.
Whoa.
Vacation baby.
Wow.
Well, that's a kind of a fucked up thing too, and it's almost embarrassing to admit this, but I really didn't understand a lot about my own like reproductive system and how it all worked, or even my like my physical body until getting pregnant.
Like, in what way?
Just like a lot of the ways. Like, I didn't understand what happens when a baby's growing, or fully like what's happening to get them out. I didn't even really understand fully how my cycle worked. Like, we got pregnant accidentally. We were not trying to have a baby. Again, we were on vacation having a good time. And it was like, oh, duh, had I really understood my cycle or been tracking it, like I would have known that was prime time. And like, obviously, if there's a slip up, like you're going to get pregnant. So like even something as simple as that.
Considering that you never used contraception.
I mean, Madeline, what is happening here? You're revealing all of my personal secrets to the public.
That is wild that you didn't know ovulation.
No, listen, that's not true. I used birth control for far too long, and then I lost my period for a year and a half from stress. So I've had like a weird journey with all of that. But also we were married, we've been together for over a decade. We were married. It's not like I was like, oh, that's one more thing to worry about. Like, And
I mean, yeah, you were like, okay, it's not really going to be, this isn't going to be an issue if this happens.
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking. I just wasn't like putting attention on it. But I knew obviously when I had my period and I knew when it ended and like, but I wasn't even educated enough to be like, okay, now is probably the time that I would get pregnant. It was like, well, I'll figure that out. When I want to get pregnant, I'll figure out the cycle stuff.
Totally. No, I'm with you though. Like I got off my birth control a year ago, got my Mirena taken out and had been on it since, some level of contraception since I was 18 years old. And finally I was like, oh, now I've got to learn. Mm-hmm. And I agree. I didn't know there was only 5 days a month that you're fertile. Like that you're ovulating for the one day, and the days that are surrounding that you can actually get pregnant. And then outside of that, like you're probably going to be okay. Be careful. But now I have to know that because I'm never going to go on contraception again. So that's like now you just
will you have sex before you get married?
I'm no sex before marriage. I'm done.
I figured, yeah. So, gentlemen out there, if you would like to court Maddie, just know she's waiting till marriage.
Particular.
As we should be, but
it's got to be a fucking good connection, I tell you what.
But this episode is fun, and I think I walked away feeling really empowered and like, just feeling like ready to, I'm in a position now where I have advocated for my own health in so many ways, but it's just a really good reminder that we are our best tools when it comes to understanding what's good and what's normal and how our body should work. Yeah. No doctor should know our bodies as well as we do. And if something isn't right, we should speak up and we should request action be taken until we get to the answer.
Yeah. And if you've got issues, speak up, speak to your friends, speak to your girlfriends, because that was the most powerful thing for me when I got tested and found that out. I just spoke to women around me and they're like, oh yeah, I've been through that. I've had that before. I've had that surgery where they take some of the cervix off, they get rid of the cells. And I was like, oh, I had no idea you'd been through that. Just like with Leesh, endometriosis, speaking about it. Yeah. So keep the conversations going.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for having this one, Maddie. It was a lot of fun. It was fun just to hear the two of you, your dynamic. There's a really good energy to the conversation. Like I said, I walked away feeling very empowered.
Love to hear it. And we love Leesh. So excited for everyone to hear this one. And please provide any questions you have. We're here for it.
Yeah, this is a good one to share with a girlfriend. Maybe someone who is going through some health issues, someone who maybe has had endometriosis or suspects that they have it. Really any of your female friends that you just want to have more of an open conversation about health stuff with and help empower them on their journey. So share if you have the opportunity. We'd be so grateful for some ratings, some likes, some reviews, some follows, all the things. Expanders Club on all your favorite platforms, including Instagram and TikTok.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy. Elisha, Dalli, welcome to the Expanders Club podcast.
Thanks for having me.
We're here sitting in our lounge room.
We are. We are.
Yeah, this is us, roomies, Mads and Leesh, Venice Beach at the crib.
Yeah, our little oasis.
We love it. And you guys might be wondering, why am I bringing on Elisha Dalli, my roommate and one of my absolute besties? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Leesh is a living legend.
Thank you. Yes, that's all you really need to know. It's just an hour talking about how much of a legend I am.
I mean, that's what we usually talk about at home each night. But truly, anyone who meets her knows that she is that. So that is true.
Thank you.
But she's had an interesting life. She's got an interesting story. And she's been through, I think, more than most people have been through. And she is here to share her gifts, tell her story, and educate people and help them on their journeys. But one in particular, out of all the things you've been through, that I want to talk about today, because I hear so much more about this. I never knew anything about this, and now I seem to hear it all the time. So many more of my friends talk about this.
Yes.
And this is endometriosis.
That it is. Yes.
Something that you've lived with for how many years?
Well, I've really lived with it since my first period when I was 14, so year 8 in Australia.
Okay. So maybe let's give the audience context of your explanation of endometriosis.
Yes.
Because you always say that this is not, the definition out there is not as accurate as it should be.
Yes. So that's something that everyone needs to be aware of, is that there is a lot of misinformation out there. But endometriosis, by definition, is where tissue similar to the lining of your uterus, the endometrium, grows in other parts of your body. So it's not the lining of the uterus, but tissue that's similar to that. So it can grow in all sorts of organs, like, the liver, the bladder. It was found on my bladder, on my ovaries, on my bowels. In rare cases, it's been found in the brain or in the nasal cavities, like very crazy stuff, very rare. The diaphragm. So it's just tissue growing where it's not supposed to be, and it is a chronic condition. It's a whole body disease.
Oh my gosh. And is there any explanation as to why you might get endometriosis?
No. So there is currently no cure for endometriosis.
And no understanding what causes it?
No. I mean, sometimes they'll say it's hereditary, but again, it's like, why is it happening? We don't know. And they are, it's probably a reason of why you're hearing about it more recently, is they are starting to put a lot more research into it, especially in Australia. So the government's recognized that, this is really a big issue for people. It affects, it was 1 in 10 when I was diagnosed. It's now 1 in 7 in Australia, and currently in the US it is 1 in 9 women diagnosed.
Is insane. I was looking up a fact before here, and it's saying more than 200,000 cases a year are diagnosed in the US.
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. And so now it's finally being recognized as something that needs more research.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so I'd love you to share a little bit of your story, what were the symptoms, how you even knew that you had it.
Yeah.
And that journey.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, my first period was year 8 in Australia. So that is when you're 14 years old. And I remember thinking, oh, yeah, I finally got my period. Went to an all-girls school, so you start hearing about everyone getting their period. And, I come from a European background, so it's like, congratulations, you're now a woman. Little did I know what was coming for me. So straight off the bat, I experienced extremely heavy periods throughout high school and in my early 20s, so much so that, I would have to wear, almost like, not even pads, they were like nappies, diapers for the Americans listening. You would have to wear double underwear, and at school, just that fear when you stand up,
No, but that is so real. As a teenage girl, you are already so self-conscious.
Yes.
And the fear of bleeding through your dress.
Oh, gosh.
I do remember once I stood up from an assembly and one of the girls tapped me on the back and she's like, babe, you've got blood. And I had a patch of blood and just walking with my dress between my legs, like getting as quickly as I could to the bathroom. Like, I can't imagine how that would have felt for you every single month.
Absolutely. Yeah. We love the girls for, the check me. Everyone had to check.
Totally. The girls have each other's back.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, really heavy periods, some blood clotting as well, and also inconsistency in my periods, which I still experience today. And then, you have the diarrhea, the nausea, the fatigue, the pain with sexual intercourse. The thing is not everyone with endometriosis will experience all the symptoms, and if any. So you'll hear about people having, stage 4 endometriosis and not experiencing any symptoms. So the actual measure of your pain doesn't always equal how much endometriosis has grown in your body. So it's a very complex condition.
That is so hard because how do you even know? Like, what was your help and guidance through this period?
So, from my doctor records, I've been complaining about, heavy periods and feeling quite unwell since I was 15. So, a year after. And you are told, just go on the pill, just take Panadol, you'll be fine. And then, I didn't get diagnosed until 10 years later when I was 25. And I think it does take, between 10 and 12 years is the average diagnosis, because it just, there is a lot of dismissal in the medical system, unfortunately. I was on the pill, straight on the pill.
So that's what your first doctor said. They just said, just go on the pill.
Go on the pill. And now, look, I will say that contraception has helped in my symptom management, but it does not cure endometriosis. So it has helped me live my life, be able to get out of bed and be able to go to work. But on the other hand, it can do a really good job of masking the symptoms and then prolonging diagnosis. So, I lived with this obviously through high school, and then it seemed to almost get worse when I went to college. So my first week, I remember I was sitting in a lecture and, oh my gosh, I had to get up every 20 minutes running to the bathroom because I was so sick. And I remember having, I live like an hour and a half away from uni, so I had to, get on the train, and it was just so hard. First week, had to, get out of there. But it did get really bad. And then, I was finally diagnosed at 25 after insisting that I had a surgery. So I was referred to a gynecologist in my town of Geelong. And I went in and I said, I have endometriosis.
Yeah, let's just be clear here. Leesh wasn't diagnosed by a doctor. She diagnosed herself.
Yeah.
She had gone to multiple doctors. I mean, what is this? What is going on? And no one could tell you what it was.
Because you know in your body that this isn't right.
Yes.
And you see, your girls around you, they're getting their period, sure, cramps. It's never fun, endometriosis or not. But I was like, this isn't normal.
It is crazy, though. I have always thought that it is women, it's actually been normalized to be like, oh, period pain.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just PMS. Oh, you've just got cramps. Oh, you've got this, you've got that. But actually, that isn't normal to be feeling that consistently and probably to the level that you were feeling it, of course.
Exactly. And did we learn about this in high school? No fucking way.
No.
It's not talked about. I mean, I just feel like I learned how to say the word endometriosis.
Fully.
So it wasn't even talked about. So I didn't even know it existed. to diagnose myself until I started doing my own research. And, you know, that's the thing, is a lot of women have to do their own research. And that's why I think, you know, you have to be wary of, you know, things like wrong definitions or misinformation out there. So you're also trying to navigate that. But I did go in and I said, I have endometriosis, and they booked me in for a surgery and they found endometriosis.
Okay, so the reason you went in for a surgery is because you actually have to get surgery to find out you've got endometriosis,
Correct.
right?
So I, you know, I went through a stage, and look, I haven't been talking about endo as much on Instagram. And look, I'm not like an influencer by any means, but I mean, like, just in my community.
You've got a strong influence, girl.
And you just, when I do talk about it, so from speaking about it, I've had multiple girls reach out to me, and 3 have actually been diagnosed with endo. But
That's incredible.
I mention this because a couple said to me, oh, I've been tested for endo because I thought I had it, because I'm, you know, experiencing all these crazy symptoms like you've mentioned, but I don't have it. And my first question to them is, have you had a laparoscopy surgery? And when they say no, I say, you have to have that surgery. There's no way to know. I mean, you can get scans done, and sometimes they can pick up like very infiltrated endo, but you need to have the surgery to really know, because like I said, you can attach to so many different organs.
I imagine that maybe with more research, there's surely a way to find out if people have endometriosis further down the track. Maybe that's what we'll see in the future.
Hopefully. I mean, with the technology, I just hope it can improve. Yeah. So, I mean, I went in for the surgery. Now, there's also 2 types of surgery, which I wasn't aware of before my surgery. So there's laparoscopy surgery. So what they'll do is they will go in and they basically blow everything up so they can see within. They'll go in with a telescope and see if they can see endo. Now, there's ablation surgery, where basically they go in and burn it off.
Oh my gosh.
And then there's excision surgery, which is what I had, luckily. Excision is king or queen. So you want excision surgery because it will actually remove the endometriosis by the root, where ablation, just imagine it just burns it off. So obviously it's going to grow back at a quicker rate. So yeah, I had that, but I didn't even know till afterwards that there were 2 types. That wasn't explained to me.
Wow. And so let's be clear here. When you have this surgery and get it burned away, cut off, it's taken, it is always going to grow back. Like, that is endometriosis, right?
Yes. And that's why it is so gnarly. And you don't know, like right now, it's been just over 4 years since I've had the surgery, and there's no way of me knowing if it's grown back or, you know, how much it's grown back unless I go in for that surgery. So, you know, I know girls that have had multiple surgeries. In fact, when I got out of mine, one of the nurses, you know, I stayed overnight, and she came in at like 1 a.m. and she was talking to me, and she said, yeah, you know, I've got endometriosis too. And I was like, oh, amazing, you know, because I just got out of this surgery, and I was feeling great that I actually finally had some validation that I was correct and I had a diagnosis. And then she's like, yeah, I've had 6. And I thought, fuck, I have to have this surgery again and again. And so you almost go through like this sort of different type of grief afterwards. You're excited, you're happy that you feel validated, that you have a diagnosis, but then it's like, what's next?
Oh my gosh. And do they give you an average of how many years you need it?
No. And I mean, some doctors will say come in for a routine surgery, and that's actually a red flag, because you're not, you know, the more surgeries you have, it almost then can create a different pain cycle, because by removing it, you're causing scar tissue. And then, you know, when you're feeling like inflamed or something flares up, sometimes the scar tissue can like stretch, and then that's a different type of pain. So some girls will think that's the endometriosis like causing the pain, but it's actually the scar tissue. So it's a really tricky one. and one I don't really, to be honest, know how to navigate. And like, I'm not a medical professional, but this is just my experience that I've had with it, and a few of my friends have had with it. But yeah, another surgery is definitely probably most likely on the cards for me. It's just when.
And can you speak to, and I mean, I see this in you living together, what triggers the flare-ups?
Yeah. So everyone is different, and, everyone's on their own journey. But for me, I know that lack of sleep, stress, and dairy paired with alcohol will cause a flare-up. But then there's other times where I do everything right. I'm sleeping, I'm eating well, I'm exercising, I'm managing my stress. And out of the blue, I'll have a flare-up, which, I mean, you've experienced me having that, where I've had to call you from my bedroom saying, I cannot move.
Oh, my God.
You need to help me.
Literally, you have to go get her medication,
Yep.
heat her up a heat pack and bring it to her because Leesh is in so much pain. That is just so not normal that at any time you could go through that.
Yeah, and it was completely random. I mean, we talked through it. We said, what if, like, what did I do? I didn't drink. I didn't think I drank for a whole month or two before that. And I was feeling, pretty good. And yeah, it just lasted, that day. And then you sort of feel like you have a hangover from it. And, one of my major symptoms for me is fatigue.
Yeah.
Extreme fatigue. And sometimes it would just hit me out of the blue. And yeah, a lot of pelvic pain, which, you try and manage. I've seen a pelvic physio, which is really, they're awesome. Kind of funny though, is that I didn't realize that they go internally when you go to a pelvic physio. Did you know that?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So I went in thinking that maybe they just do some massaging on the outside, but no, they'll go in. So, I mean, I'm sure everyone will do their research, but I didn't. So I went in and that was like, oh, okay. And yeah, it's a whole new world.
Male or female?
Female for me, thank gosh. Yeah, she was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not prepared, like mentally getting your head around that, like sometimes you feel okay about it, but I think
Yes.
that's pretty full on. An internal vaginal massage.
Yes. And yeah, it's...
Or like, how far are they going? Up to your cervix?
Yeah, they're going, because obviously your vagina is muscles, and there's muscles all on the inside. And what had been happening for me is, a lot of women experience this with endometriosis, is pain during sex. And it's also just a response of, this is going to cause me pain, and it's like a mental thing. So your muscles will just like tense up.
How have you navigated that?
Yeah, that's been a tough one, because it's honestly come in waves, and it's been my partner's been very understanding, and we just have to navigate. Sometimes it's fine, and the thing is, you don't know until you try.
Yeah.
But it's a major symptom for a lot of women, and you pair that for some friends of mine who are trying for a baby, and obviously they're having some issues with fertility, but also, just on the other hand, that no one talks about, is they don't really want to have sex because it's painful.
I mean, I think that's the worst part, to actually not want to have sex, like for it to physically hurt and it not be what's meant to be an enjoyable thing.
Yeah.
With you and your partner.
Yes.
And it physically is a barrier.
Exactly. Yeah, it's tough.
What would you say to someone who's experiencing any of the symptoms that you've mentioned? Like, what would be their first steps? So
firstly, if you're experiencing any of those symptoms or all of them, it's not normal. I would definitely go see your GP, if you have a trusted GP, or talk to your girls and see if they've got a good GP and say, look, this is what I'm experiencing. I would like to go see a gynecologist to talk about this. That also, I will mention, there's a lack of endometriosis specialists. There's a lot of gynecologists out there, but they're delivering babies, and, endometriosis is a complex condition. And the gynecologist who actually did my surgery, he's no longer, my specialist, because after my diagnosis, I went in for a follow-up, and he said to me, I said, okay, so I've got endometriosis. What now? And he's like, oh, you should go get pregnant. And that is a massive red flag for so many reasons. One being that does not cure endometriosis. Again, it may mask some symptoms, but a lot of women experience fertility issues who have endo. So I thought, I'm not even going to bother with you. And I just sort of got up and I left. And it was actually a lady on Instagram who was actually a model, and I'd shot with her in studio when I worked in design. And we got chatting about endo through the DMs. And she said to me, I have an amazing specialist in Melbourne. And her name is Melissa. And obviously for anyone interested, please message Mads and I'll pass on her details. But she is actually an endometriosis specialist.
Oh my God, amazing.
And she works in fertility as well. So she is a guru. And I went and saw her, and, I told her about my experiences, obviously being gaslit by medical professionals, and then my experience with the gynecologist. And yeah, she said, you're not the first person to tell me a story like this. And that is just really sad.
That is so sad, because it's just, number one, I mean, how outrageous to tell someone to get pregnant. And number two, like, just a quick fix because, the length of your pregnancy, you won't have endometriosis symptoms, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, as if that's just going to bide time or something.
Yeah.
As if, like, go on the pill, same thing. I mean, fertility, how does endometriosis affect fertility?
Yeah, so this is sort of something that I'm just going into this world, and there's still so much research to be done about it because they don't know exactly how it affects fertility. They just know that there is a higher chance if you have endometriosis that, you will struggle with it. And my friends who have endometriosis, who have tried for a baby, unfortunately, have struggled falling pregnant naturally. And I'm not saying that you can't, because you can, but it is just a bit trickier for some. And they're still sort of researching that. But I mean, something that has been researched is, endometriosis in the fallopian tubes. Of course, that will affect fertility. But I mean, there's a lot of research to be done.
Okay, so it also matters where you have the endometriosis in your body.
Well, not always.
Okay.
See, that's where it's tricky. But I mean, if you had it in your fallopian tubes,
much higher risk.
Of course, that gets tricky. Yeah.
Okay. I feel as though there's more conversation, and maybe it's just because I'm focused on this, maybe because I've met you, you've talked about endometriosis, and now I would say, I mean, I know many of my friends who, I mean, many is maybe a stretch, but at least a handful of friends who have it and experiencing it. And it is the conversation as we move into an age where we're more focused on fertility. And in general, I think women are feeling more empowered to actually own the issues that they're facing. They've had period pain their whole life. Women are more focused on their hormones. They're actually becoming more in touch with their cycle.
Yeah.
And women are actually being studied more, researched more. Like the fact that women were not included in clinical trials to a high degree until the 1990s.
Isn't that crazy?
Like, I literally read a fact that literally the FDA had to issue a guideline in 1993 that called for a reasonable amount of women to be included in new clinical trials. And the reason that they weren't is because they were like, women's hormones fluctuate too much during the month, and there's too many variables to get accurate testing, which is so crazy because it's like, well, then how are we meant to know anything of how we're affected in life?
Exactly. I mean, that's really just speaks volumes. That fact right there.
Yeah, so I feel like now, so you being, going through this now,
Yes.
say someone like maybe your daughter, for
Yes.
example, if she was to have endometriosis,
Yes.
I don't know this, but I feel as though there'll be so much more research. It'll be in such a different stage,
I hope
20
so.
years on.
And, that's the other thing is that we're also finding our voice and we're speaking up about it.
Yes.
Now I'm seeing more not only about endometriosis, but people really documenting their fertility journeys. And it's just like, when I see that, I'm like, yes, you go, girl.
Yes.
Because by you speaking about it, you might educate someone else. And it's also not about us educating women. It's also about educating the men.
Yeah.
Men have partners, they have sisters, they have aunties. The more we speak about it, the more we normalize it, the more we raise awareness, people can get the help and then they can get diagnosed earlier, have more quality of life, and just overall, it's all good.
And exactly right. And also just understanding women's cycles in general.
Yes.
Like knowing that women work on a 28-day clock or a 32-day clock, as opposed to men who work on a 24-hour cycle in terms of our hormones, our hormone release. From one week to another week to another week, we are at such a different stage based on our hormone release. And understanding that and being in control of that, and I speak to this because of just recently reading the book In the Flow by Elisha, and she speaks so much to actually, as a female, the more you know, the more you actually understand your cycle, your hormones, what should and shouldn't feel, like what doesn't feel right and what should feel right, means that we can be so much more powerful. Like that as there's certain times of the month that we feel powerful and we can actually show up and we can ask for the raise, we can do the project, we can do the public speaking thing. And then there's some times of the month that we need to just be nurtured and we need self-care, we need to look after ourselves, we need to go internal.
Yes.
And that means that women can be so much more powerful.
Yeah. And that's another thing, is just being in tune with your body. And I think I definitely am more in tune with my body than I was in high school or my early 20s. And that has definitely helped with, my symptom management. And it's a tricky one, but you have to really do your own research. And just on that, a really great resource is Triple J presenter Bridget Huswaite. She started her own Instagram. It's called How to Endo, and she also wrote a book. And the book is called How to Endo. Her Instagram is Endogram. And then there's also a great book called Beating Endo. So, you unfortunately have to do your own research, but the more we speak about it, the more that this, research will be accessible.
Okay, we're going to include those in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Because that's so important. And so on a daily basis, what are the things that you have to think about with someone living with endometriosis?
Yeah, so I never travel without my heat pack. And just on that, sometimes you don't have access to a microwave to heat it up. So something really good that I discovered, by accident, because I'd got my period in Melbourne airport, about to board a huge flight to LA one time. And you can actually just from your local pharmacy get these like pads that they stick onto your skin and they heat up. So that is like super, super helpful if you're traveling. So always take I always have like either my heat pack or pads with me while traveling. And then I always have my naprogesic with me. So, as you know, there's a packet in every room in this house. There is, one in my drawer at work. I'm like the local pharmacist in the office. Like I always have the pads, the tampons, the painkillers for the girls.
Naprogesic you get in Australia.
Yeah, you do get it in Australia.
I wonder what it is here in the US. Is it an anti-inflammatory? It's a painkiller.
It's a painkiller, yeah. And I don't know what the equivalent is here. I mean,
higher level.
You probably can get something like similar here. I mean, I mean, it's crazy when I go into the pharmacy here. I'm like,
you can get anything you
you
want.
can
over
get
the counter here.
anything, and I'm like, this is too gnarly for me. I'm just gonna stick with my good old Naprogesic that you can get over the counter.
And especially with medication, like you don't want to go too far. Then, like to know that something works for you, stick to that.
Yes.
But in terms of managing it, maybe before the pain comes about, how would you do that in a more holistic sense?
Yeah, so it's definitely for me staying away from dairy, limiting my alcohol intake, making sure that, I aim to get 8 hours of sleep. That will really affect me if I'm running off 5 hours sleep, especially consecutive. Like that is just a recipe for disaster. If I'm like lack of sleep, and then stress management. So making sure I'm exercising regularly, keeping my nervous system at bay, which again is something that I've definitely learned. Like I'm definitely a lot more calmer than I was through high school and my early 20s. And I do think that went hand in hand with my symptoms being definitely worse back then. I wouldn't say that my endometriosis has improved. I would just say that my pain management and just being in tune with my body has definitely improved.
Wow. And I know you can only speak to your experience, but do you know when is the most likely time for endometriosis to manifest, like start in the body?
Do you mean by like how old you are?
Yes.
Or,
how old?
Well, it's really just when you start your period. Yeah. So it can start, the symptoms can start as early as, when you get that first period. So for me, it was honestly a few months after I got my first period that I started feeling the symptoms. But then again, some people don't have any symptoms. See how it's tricky.
Okay, and so if you didn't, and if you didn't have any symptoms, it's nothing. Nothing's been flagged, and so you're not even. And even if you were just doing blood tests, nothing could even come up.
No.
So it could just. Well, how would it affect you?
I mean, it would probably eventually come up because, say you had it in the diaphragm, you may experience trouble breathing, or you go to try and have a baby and, that is quite difficult. And then, so it's probably not until something comes up in the body that they'll investigate. And even then, you really have to push. So this is why it is so important to talk about this.
Yeah. This is really important to talk about. And so, I know it's different for everyone, and probably different doctors will tell you different things, but you have been told of that in terms of your fertility, that you should be having kids.
Yes. So yes. And this is the thing, I won't know until I try, if I'm going to have issues. But I have been told that, look, it does increasingly get trickier from the age of 35, just for anyone, but especially someone with endometriosis. So, the way I had to think about it is, instead of when will I start having kids, it was when will I finish having kids. Now, this is something that, where Jake and I are navigating at the moment is we're not ready for kids right now. And I'm not going to just go and try right now, which I know it's something I've been battling with, because will I look back in 5 years and think, fuck, why didn't you just try? Because we know we want to have kids.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not going to just, do something that I'm not ready for because I have endometriosis.
No, absolutely not. And not let fear get in the way of that and like what you've been told, because it just feels like if they're just saying, oh, yeah, it's hard when you're 35. They say that to every fucking woman. Like that is the age that they're like beyond 35, it's a geriatric pregnancy.
Yeah, which is crazy.
And I really think there's more research to be done around that, because like things are changing.
Yes.
But also let's pretend by saying this, like you're 29 years old.
Yeah, exactly. I am 29 years old, and look, I'm not ready for children right now. But with that said, I went and saw my specialist when I was just in Australia, and Jake actually came with me this time, and it was the first time that he had been to my appointment, one of my appointments with me. And it was really nice because, you go to these appointments and each time you just, I don't know, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, even though you've got a diagnosis, but because you've been, and my specialist is amazing, but it just all, the experience with other doctors kind of starts creeping in. Will they dismiss me, etc. Jake came with me this time, and we were talking about, I was going in to speak about freezing my eggs.
Yes.
And yeah, Jake came in and, he was asking so many questions.
Good on you, Jake.
He was awesome. And as he should,
totally.
Yeah. It's not
this is a partnership. This
exactly.
is what you're deciding to do together.
Exactly. So, we are going to go down the path of, freezing an embryo. And it's not to say that we're not going to try naturally when we're ready. It's that, we're going to do that because what if we need to?
Yeah.
And then, I've gone and done that, and it's fine. And it's also peace of mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And same. I saw a fertility doctor when I was back in Australia this trip as well. And she said, look, honestly, most people don't use the eggs that they freeze. And hopefully you won't have to. But this is just a backup plan. These eggs are frozen here if you need them. Say you're trying naturally and it just doesn't work and you're getting older and older, and maybe if you're second or third child you need to use them, you've just got that peace of mind. And maybe that peace of mind is enough to just put you at ease.
Yes.
That you're just more stress-free through the whole process.
Exactly.
And that can put you in a better mindset to just be like, okay, I've got the backup plan, but let's try and do it naturally.
Exactly. And that's what we'll end up doing, but we'll know we've got that. And it's a funny one. She was awesome. She said, but Leesh, I'm not going to put you through all this. And she looked at Jake and said, until you get your sperm tested.
Yes.
Because, that's almost another episode for you around fertility.
No, but that's really true, because I feel like the conversation is always around women. Oh, how old are you? What's your egg count? This, that. But let's not forget, men have a sperm count, and that's very important. And that can be half the problem. Yeah. And I was just doing some research yesterday, and they're saying, sperm count in men has drastically reduced. There's so many different factors and toxins in our environment that are affecting this. Both as women's fertility is being affected as men's.
Yeah. And the men need to lay off the pingers. It's going to come back and bite them.
Yeah, boys, those partying days, they're going to come back and get you at a later date.
They will. But there's so many factors. And
I think while you're gearing up, say you're a couple and you're gearing up to have babies, it is both on the male and the female to really focus on their health, reduce their drinking, reduce whatever drug intake. I'm joking.
Well,
both stay clean. Yeah. Leading up to that process, because it's a two-way street.
Exactly. Yeah. So, fellas, get your sperm tested before the missus has to poke herself every fucking day with injections.
You can tell this girl has just got back off the plane from Australia. It's rich, the Aussie accent.
I was just the last 45 minutes have just been holding it in.
I know you.
And now I'm just
You've
letting
been speaking
loose.
like a proper lady.
Let's
get back to the chat.
Yeah, back to the chat.
Our normal Aussie chat in the household.
Oh, good times.
Okay. It is good times. What's something that we haven't covered that you feel is important, or something to your experience, or something that you would want to tell someone?
Yeah, I think just if anyone can take anything from this, it's that, period pain, these symptoms are not normal, and really you have to advocate for yourself, unfortunately, but you have to go in to the doctor, you have to really insist that you speak to a specialist, do your research, go in. Every time also you go in to see the specialist, I take a notepad. And, it's okay to ask questions, write down your questions, write down what they're telling you in there, seek help, because it's not normal.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say, and this feels like your journey, Leesh, like you knew in your body
Yes.
that there was something wrong.
Yep.
And I will say your intuition, and
Yeah.
as a female, I mean, as a human, our intuition is so strong. And
Yeah.
you know in your body when something isn't right.
Yeah.
But you have to be connected to your body to understand. You have to like listen to that.
Yes. Yeah. And also, like, just be patient and speak about it, speak to your friends about it, speak to your family about it.
That's important. Having these conversations.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's because we're older, maybe it's because it's this time of life where we're talking about fertility, or maybe just women in general being more open. But the conversations around it, like women didn't know how common, for example, miscarriages are. Women
Yes.
didn't know how common it was to not be able to get pregnant.
Yes.
And all of this, and pain and struggles
Yeah.
and emotional battles.
Yeah.
Because we just don't speak about it enough.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, also something we haven't spoken about that I think it's worth mentioning is, you know, we've talked about us as women and if we're feeling these symptoms, doing our research, but, you know, we haven't really covered how to support, you know, your partner or your sister or your friend if they do have endometriosis or they're going down the path of getting diagnosed.
This is a great.
So my advice is just be there to listen and validate, but also go and do your own research too. You know, I've had friends who have listened to podcasts, read books, or talked to another person with endo. You know, Jake's been awesome about doing his own research too, and nothing makes me happier and makes me feel more understood than, you know, someone educating themselves and just trying to support me in that way.
That's so beautiful, because this affects you on a daily basis. Like this is something that you live with and will continue to live with.
Yeah, key
unless
point.
or until there
Yeah.
is any sort of cure for this, which
Exactly.
there isn't right now.
Yes.
And that support, so true.
And there's still so many people who don't know about endo, and I'm pretty open about it. The only time I will admit that I've had resistance to opening up about me having endo is when I started at my new workplace here in the US. And that wasn't a reflection on them. Let me make that very clear. It was me, because I thought if I went ahead and said I have a chronic condition, endometriosis, that maybe I would be looked at a little bit different, maybe not as a professional. And, you know, that wasn't the case when I got comfortable. Obviously, I started speaking about it. Look, you know, I have to call off today because actually I have endometriosis and I'm having a flare up. And then this is what it is. And then, but I hadn't given them that opportunity to be supportive before that.
But that's a really beautiful point, because you do feel like it's a weakness. You think you'll be viewed weaker, and that people would judge you and be like, oh gosh, they're someone who struggles with something. And you feel like you're looked down on, and it's not like enough awareness around it that it's actually like, this is so common, this is so real. And also, you're the hardest working person I know, and I know any time that you ever called out is because you were bedridden.
Yes. But, you know, we know that, you know that, I know that. But it's hard. And, you know, I do work in an industry, I work in the fashion industry with a lot of women. So there was also a point where I was like, hey, I need to talk about this. And, you know, because maybe I'll be able to help someone else that's also suffering. Because odds are there's a few other girls in that building that have endometriosis, whether they have it or not. You know, 1 in 9 here in the US, 1 in 7 in Australia.
Okay, this has been such an educational conversation. And also, I think such a big lesson here is empowering women to connect with their bodies and listen to their bodies. What is it telling them?
Exactly.
And like you just you do things because you know how it makes you feel. You're like, I have to sleep more. I can't eat this. Like this, I know how it makes me feel. And it's not like this textbook diet. It's just like you've had to just listen to each symptom along the way.
Exactly. And just be kind to yourself and be gentle. I mean, you know, I get down a lot if I am, you know, having one of those days. And I think, you know, I was, you know, or I'm booked in to do a HIIT class and, you know, I can't because that's the worst thing for me to do right now. Or you know, maybe it's just I need to go for a walk, or maybe it's that I need to be in bed with a heat pack, binge watching Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Hell yes. Sometimes you got to have that.
Exactly. And it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
That's actually something. Okay, I just want to say I love ClassPass. We book our classes on ClassPass. We get to try out these different studios. But sometimes when you want to plan your schedule ahead of time and you've booked in your workouts for the week and then say you're like, oh, damn it, I just got my period. Maybe it came early, maybe it came late, maybe you weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
And you got your period and you just cannot do the exercise that you wanted to do. I think there should be an option to cancel on ClassPass and not get charged if you've just got your period.
I agree. ClassPass, if you're listening.
You got to sort that out, guys.
Yeah, don't be a dog.
A $17 fee for if you're cancelling last minute, but it's real.
Yeah. Like, I'm already having a flare-up. I don't need a $17 fine.
Punishment for this.
Yeah. Dog act. Absolute dogs.
We've put it out there. It's just a suggestion, guys.
Yeah. But you're dogs if you don't listen.
But we appreciate your business, but we've just got some improvements for the business model.
Yeah.
There's one more thing I do want to ask, though. Okay, so right now, managing endo, what are you currently doing? Because you're on contraception.
Yes, we didn't mention that. I have the Mirena. So they popped that in when I had my surgery. And I mean, I've had the implant on in my arm. I've had the pill. And for me, the pill it wasn't good for me only because I'm terrible at taking it every day. The same time. And now the Mirena, I know a lot of women also, it doesn't agree with them.
Yeah.
It's helped me, to be honest, with, you know, just decreasing my symptoms. I still have crazy symptoms, of course, but it's not as bad. But the main one it's helped with is my heavy flows and losing a lot of blood, because I was losing so much blood that I became anemic, iron deficient, and would have to have iron infusions. So, you know, that's helped that.
Okay, so you're purely on the Mirena, you're on contraception to manage your bleeding.
Correct. Yes.
Do we feel like there'll be a time, though, where there's going to be a better solution than just putting you on birth control?
Gosh, I hope so.
Like, I hope that within 5 years, you don't have to, women do not have to have a Mirena in.
Yeah.
To help manage that. There's got to be something better.
I hope so. And I mean, that is also paired with, you know, making sure I'm moving my body, stress management, feeling supported, eating good food, staying hydrated. Yeah. It's a full-time job.
It's a full-time job. And also just like the fact that you don't really have a choice. Like your body, you're like, I'm bleeding too much. This is not good for me.
Yeah.
Like speaking from someone who just got her Mirena out. Yes. I got mine out a year ago. And I kind of, looking back now, I kind of can't believe that I did have it in for so long, because now I'll never take contraception again. And because I don't want to have anything, a foreign object in my body. I don't want to have anything that's affecting my hormones.
Yes.
I just want to be completely naturally and in tune with my cycle.
Yes.
Because if it's not for the reason of managing right now, your pain levels and a chronic condition, as a just any female on birth control, like, yes, it's so you're not getting pregnant. But if you are so in touch with your cycle, there's only very few days a month that you can actually get pregnant when you're ovulating. And if you're so aware of that, you can be really safe around that.
Absolutely. And, you know, this is just my personal preference, but if I didn't have endometriosis, I would be on no contraception.
Yes.
Another thing to note is even if I was not on contraception, I couldn't even be in tune with my cycle because it was all over the place. That was another one of my symptoms. I would have my period for 2 weeks straight, then not have it for 1 week, then have it again for a week, then not have it for a month. Like, it was all over the place.
And that is not normal. So you have to, that's a great
Yes.
first
Yes.
point.
Absolutely.
An inconsistent period.
Yeah.
Go and see your GP.
Yeah, not normal. And not normal to bleed that much for that long. And yeah, it was all over the shop. So for me, I've never tracked my cycle.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I've attempted to, but what for? Like, for
Yeah.
me. Like,
Yeah.
it was just, it didn't tell me anything.
Yeah, no. And that's just, it interrupts with your life, you know. How can you plan ahead when you know,
You can't.
especially because your period brings such pain, you know.
Yeah. Big bummer.
Big bummer. Big freaking bummer.
Big bummer.
Okay, this leads us to our final question, Leesh.
All right, here we go.
This is the
What
question we ask all of our guests, and it helps give a little insight into who you are, where you've come from, and where you're going. So can you describe for me in one word or a sentence your past self, your present self, and your future self?
Okay. My past self, I would say anxious. My present self, I would say excited. Excited for, I'm definitely in a transitional period right now. I just got married. I just finished up at my last job for a new opportunity, still here in the States. And my future self, I hope content. I hope to be content. And I mean, I think it's a bit a part of my personality to always be wanting more, not sort of materialistically, but I'm very driven. But I hope that, I also can come to a place where, I'm happy with where I'm at too, because life is so short that it can just pass you by. And then, you want to make sure you're staying present and enjoying it, which is, what I'm learning to do.
That's a beautiful message. A beautiful message. I think that finding contentment, being at peace, like with the life that you've created, instead of being like, I'll be happy when I want this.
Yeah, I'll be happy when, I reach this position or this salary or have a G-Wagon.
We were talking about what car we want yesterday and our dream house and all the things.
I mean, I'm sure I'll be stoked when I have the G-Wagon, the Porsche, and the 1969 Mustang Fastback, but
Girl's
also
happy with her Tiguan right now,
Yeah,
She's
exactly.
content.
Yeah, the Volkswagen, great car. Really reliable.
She's a big car gal. Yeah, no, that's beautiful sentiment. Thank you
Yes.
for sharing that.
Of course. Thank you for having me, and also giving me a platform to chat about endo, because it's so important, and please keep talking about it.
Yes. I really wanted to open up this conversation because I feel like this is so important.
Yeah.
And I know people are going to appreciate this. And if you were able to talk about on your Instagram your story with endo, and then 3 people then went on to get diagnosed with it, you've helped those 3 people.
Exactly.
So however many people can hear this, and it helps them on their journey. And like we said, like this is Leesh's personal journey.
Yes.
And I wanted her to be able to open up about that.
Thank you.
Because that's important. And if anyone has any questions for Leesh, I'm going to put her Instagram contact in the show notes, and we're going to write out where the different references and places that you said to get research from.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely jot those down. And please don't be shy to ask me any questions.
The conversation continues, my
Absolutely.
friends.
And also that's, not isolated to just women as well. Like if you're, a partner, friend, or someone of endo and you just want to know how to support them better, also my DMs are open to chat about that too.
Oh, look at that. Beautiful support. Leesh, what a pleasure. It was a real treat. Loved having you, roomie.
Absolutely. Let's have some lunch.
Let's go make some lunch. That feels right.
That feels aligned. Ciao.
Ciao.